I'm along in McCoy once again, this time for the MAudio Hammer 88 Pro. Super excited to see what it's like. Let's go in. Not my best work. Hey guys, I'm D.I.D. Choi. As you know, I got the newly released MAudio Hammer 88 Pro. As of today, I've had it for about 2 months now, and I'm really excited to share my thoughts on it. If you guys saw my Arteria Keylab 88 Mark II video linked up here, you'll know that I ended up selling that one in favor of this when this was newly released, because I had played the Hammer 88 before, like the original version, and I thought it felt great. And as the feel of the Arteria was basically the only thing that I felt was incompatible with my setup, I knew the new MAudio Pro would be amazing for me. And it has faders on the left, thank you! As you know, I'm a composer and musician working with samples, mainly doing kind of media composition stuff. So this review is mainly going to be in the point of view of a film composer. Even if you're not a film composer, I'm sure having a second or 100th opinion on this MAudio keyboard is going to be really helpful for you when you're making your decision, because it's only like 3 months old. It's brand new. So anyways, I'll cut straight to the chase and talk about the advantages I found with this keyboard. So as the successor of the popular Hammer 88 by MAudio, this keyboard brings that same quality of feel. It has that really nice hammer action. It's graded, which means the bass response is going to be a lot tougher or heavier than the treble response up here. So these notes are a lot heavier to press than these notes, just like the way a real grand piano would feel. It's not the exact same keyboard as the Hammer 88, but they do say it is an upgrade, and I think it feels very similar to the Hammer 88 and maybe even better. It does have a bit of a slightly clicky feel compared to other keyboards. You can hear that there's a bit more of a clickiness compared to something like my Yamaha, which is sitting just here slightly out of frame. Of course, the mics aren't going to pick those two up evenly, so it's going to be hard to tell, but the Hammer 88 Pro is a little bit clickier in terms of feel than other keyboards, but when you're playing you don't really notice it. It's more about when you just, play it without any sound. So this keyboard is a lot lighter than other 88 key hammer action keyboards in this budget range, especially like the Vitar keyboards in the Arteria, the Studio Logic, and the Native Instruments keyboards. But as you know from my previous video, I found that those are way too heavy anyways, and this keyboard, while it is lighter, it is ever so slightly heavier than my S90 ES and other similar Yamaha keyboards, and I found that it's actually very similar in terms of feel and heaviness with a kind of lighter Steinway grand piano, like a 9-foot concert one. It is lighter than your typical Yamaha grand piano, from my experience at least. I found that Steinways are a little bit lighter than Yamahas. But yeah, so it basically fits in that in-between range where it just feels really good, and like it's marketed, it has a good grand piano feel. It's obviously not a grand piano, it's just a MIDI controller, and it's not like a higher-end digital piano either, so it doesn't have the wooden keys like a Roland, the A88 might offer. So the keys are plastic, but in terms of weight and just kind of response and, the way you can repeat notes and stuff, I found that it is quite similar to a grand piano, as best as you can get with a MIDI controller of this price. And yes, it does have aftertouch, though I never use it, so I know lots of people really care about it, but I've never found a way to use it. So in terms of the layout, it has the same layout as the new Oxygen Pro lines, so the Oxygen Pro 88, 61, 49, and even the smaller models. So basically that means the faders are on the left, thank you! Mod wheel and pitch bend, these are on the left, not up here like on the Arteria or a lot of other 88 key keyboards. I like that it's on the left, it's a better ergonomic position, and they light up too, which is not only cool, but also really functional if you're on a dark stage. On the back side, the ports are really nice and low on the key bed, so if you have to do what I did here and stick it up against a desk, you have room underneath so that the ports can go through with no problems. And it makes it easier to have a less cluttered spaghetti soup bowl of cables when you're playing live. And the keyboard does have a switch, which is really convenient, although it is in the back like most MIDI controllers. I feel like MIDI controller companies should have the switch like on the side or the front even, or on the top. Like, who wants to reach to the back to turn on a keyboard? Like, most people using it as a workstation kind of keyboard aren't even going to be able to fit their hand in the back because it's against a desk or it's under a desk or something like that, you know? If I want to use the switch, I actually have to like pull it out from my desk and then turn it off. So the way I handle power is just to unplug it when I'm done, but that's kind of annoying. Some other things include that it has an included music stand, which is really handy. You don't have to have a separate stand to take with you. And it fits just right into these little ring holes here. And it has a nice matte black finish. It has this traditional red felt thing. I don't know if there's a proper name for them, but you know, all proper pianos have this red thing, and it just gives a nice traditional, you know, high-end kind of feel. Yeah, the keys aren't lighting up like the native instruments, but I think this fits my aesthetic better, personally. It's also a very solid build. It's a little thicker and wider than the Arteria that I reviewed, but that's also because the Arteria is ridiculously small. And it has a pretty hefty weight of about 40.8 pounds, or for the more sane people, 18.5 kilograms. The keyboard is priced at $799 USD or $999 Canadian, making it cheaper than the Arteria Keylab 88 Mark II, the Studio Logic Grand, but not the Studio, and the Native Instruments S88 Mark II. Obviously, it is more expensive than non-hammer weighted, you know, semi-weighted 88 key keyboards, or the ones that don't have built-in controllers on them. So I think this is a really good best of both worlds situation. I mean, not even just a really good, but kind of like the perfect best of both worlds solution. Because it feels great, it's not too big like the Kawaii stuff, and it has really excellent controllers. Speaking of controllers, there are different modes on the keyboard. So you have a DAW kind of mixing mode, and then you have a preset mode. And within the preset mode, you can have, I think it was up to 20 presets or something. You know, I don't have a use for all 20 slots, so it's not a problem for me. And with the DAW modes, you can select between a whole bunch of different DAWs, you know, Logic, your Abletons, your Pro Tools, Cubase. Let's see, what else is there? MPC Beats, Studio, Logic, Reason, Cubase, Logic, Bitwig, GarageBand, Reaper, FL Studio, and also a customizable user DAW. Half of those DAWs I haven't even heard of. Okay, not half, but you know, a lot of them I don't even know existed. And when you're in the DAW control mode, you have faders. Right here, you've got buttons, so you can use them to mix your tracks, you know, automation, live, and all that. You can use them to control virtual instruments or plugin parameters, the way you want to map it. You can also select for the buttons between record arm, selecting, mute, solo, and MIDI. You have transport controls, play, stop, record, cycle, fast forward, rewind. You can have a button to latch. And if you're in the kind of Ableton environment, you have all of these for launch pads. I don't actually know what the launch pads do, but apparently you can use them for launch pads, and you got these keys for launching. Yeah. With the preset mode, you can basically do whatever you want with these. You can map your faders to CC1, CC11, 21, whatever you need for your virtual instrument needs. They include, I think it was 10 presets with their included software instruments, which I'll talk about later. And for me, I also mapped the drum pads to articulation set key switches. I also color coded them, so it's easy for me to see, you know, between my longs, my kind of special longs, which are like tremolos and harmonics and stuff. I got my shorts here, divided between the long shorts and the short shorts. I've got trills and so on and so forth. You also have knobs up here. You can use those to pan or map to other kind of like filter sweeps or whatever, LFOs, all that. And in the back, there are 3 Footswitch inputs for pedals. You can have your whole grand piano set of sustain, sostenuto, una corda, or you can map it to tap tempos or other foot switches, and you also have an extra slot for expression pedal. The keyboard is USB bus powered, so all you need is your computer to power this thing, but you also have the option of using the 9-volt DC power adapters to power it separately if you need to use it away from your computer, maybe you're using it to control other synths, but the power adapter is not included. But it's also a really common one, so you might have one lying around anyways. Now disadvantages, just a quick disclaimer, a lot of these disadvantages are kind of in comparison to the Arturia Keylab, which was a really phenomenal keyboard that just didn't exactly 100% click with me, so I was really sad to let it go, and I really missed some of the really innovative features of the Arturia. The biggest one being that it doesn't have a built-in attachable computer stand. You know, the Arturia keyboard, you can take it on live gigs easily and just place your computer right on top of that computer stand, but with this you would have to get a separate computer stand, which is, you know, a bit of a hassle. I really wish all keyboard manufacturers would start including the computer stand because no one really uses built-in sounds anymore. It's all about the Mainstage and Ableton game now. From a UI perspective, the wheel here, you know, you can use it to turn between menus and stuff, but you can't use it to toggle up, down, left, right like on the Arturia, so it is a little less flexible and you have to use a bunch of buttons and kind of go around. And similarly, the preset modes are a little more difficult to get into because if you want to switch between presets, you basically have to hold this down until the menu pops up and then you can start turning the knob. So that means if you need to quickly switch between presets on the fly, yeah, that's not really gonna happen. In fact, let me take a quick second and measure how much time it actually takes for this to switch between modes and start. Okay, so it took about 1 second and a bit, 1.5 seconds-ish, you know, because I have reaction time, which is not terribly slow, but it's not fast enough and it's not instantaneous. If you need to switch live, then it is a little slow. And also the Arturia had a dedicated button for the analog lab stuff, which basically was the included software with that keyboard, so all you have to do is press analog labs, and the preset button for them would be your own presets. While here they basically mix the included software and your own presets into one button. Another thing that might be important for the virtual instrument community is that the fader throat isn't quite as long as, you know, the Arturia or any other 100mm faders that you might be wanting. Now, I find that this is enough for me. It is a little better feeling and more accurate than the Chord Nano Control, which I've also used quite a bit, which for me I think is enough. And also the mod wheel is very detailed, so if you just want to use the mod wheel, you can do that too. And another thing I'm kind of sad about is that the knobs here are not endless rotary encoders, rather they are just kind of the old-fashioned type knobs where they have stopping points. That's really sad because if you have to pick up something on the fly, you have to get all the way to the position that you need to get it to latch and then move, or you can set it to switch right away. I think it's the momentary behavior, but that can also cause jumps in your MIDI. I feel like all manufacturers should go to endless rotary knobs because they just pick up where you left off. And as I mentioned before, it is bigger than the Arturia, thicker and longer because of the mod wheel and the pitch bend on the side, and I guess the hammer action technology of MAudio just requires a little bit more space. But compared to something like my Yamaha S90 ES or any other, you know, kind of stage pianos, it is on the more compact side, which is really nice. Also, unlike the Arturia, it does not have the CV ports on the back, so if you're using this with analog synths, that might be a bit of an issue for you, but it's not an issue for me. And lastly, another bit of a bugger for me is that I can't get my Yamaha FC3A, the sustain pedal with half pedaling and all that, to work properly with this. The default polarity is backwards on the Yamaha, I guess, which I feel like it wasn't. I feel like the Rolands are usually the ones that are backwards, but yeah, the polarity just doesn't seem to work, and when I go into the software and try to switch the values, I couldn't really figure out a way to work with it. I wonder if maybe one of you guys have been able to get the Yamaha pedal to work properly with MAudio stuff. If you have, let me know how you did it in the comments, please, because I really like that pedal and I really want to use it, but now I'm just stuck with one of those icky plastic pedal things. And I'm also going to talk about a couple features that I don't personally use, but they are features on the keyboard, so I should probably mention them. The first one that they really market is the Smart Chord and Smart Note feature. Basically, you can play one note and have a whole chord orchestrated out for you, or if you're not a pianist and you don't know how to play with different key signatures, you can set a key and basically every white key will correspond to the right note in that key, and the black notes will also basically be quantized to one of the white notes. I hope that made sense. You can check out other videos to look further into that, but it's supposed to help people that don't know how to play in keys, but also learn how to play in keys. There is also a note repeat function and a arpeggiator, but I haven't found a way to use it. I guess if you use, kind of outboard synthesizers or, play live, those features might be handy, but for me, it's either I set it up in my DAW or in main stage and just use the arpeggiators in there. I rarely ever have to use the arpeggiator that's built into this anyways because it's less customizable, so yeah. There's also the included software, there's MPC Beats, they give you Pro Tools First and Ableton Lite and a bunch of other things, including like a piano and a couple other things, but if you're buying a piano at this range, I'm gonna guess you already have a bunch of tools that you use regularly, and maybe you won't need the included software. But if you are a beginner and you're lucky enough to have this as your first MIDI controller, then yeah, the software is gonna be really helpful. So as I said, I had this keyboard for about 2 months now. I really love it, and at first, because I was coming from the Arteria keyboard, the keybed felt way too ridiculously light, and I was like, what's wrong with this keybed? But then, I got my hands on a couple actual grand pianos for a change and found that this was actually very similar to the Steinways I was playing. So Arteria's too heavy, this similar to a Steinway. I think that's a win. With the faders on the left, what more can you ask for as a film composer? You can check out my Arteria video to see how I map out my faders and my key switches on the drum pads. I basically have the same setup, and I think that's about it. If I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer you. If you liked this video and it helped you, please leave a like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, share with people that might want to buy this keyboard. Also check out the Arteria video I made and all my other videos on the channel, a lot of original compositions and also virtual instrument and audio tutorials. Anyways, this has been D.I.D. Choi, and I will see you in the next one.